Welcome everybody. This is lecture 7 in our course, and we're getting close to, well, moving towards the end of the course, and it's time that we are looking into practical applications of behavior economics. In this course, we will talk about how two frameworks actually that we can apply in any situation when we're trying to influence or design choices that are easy for people. But first, we need to understand how do we approach any project where we need to create some kind of behavioral change. First is, there are 4 stages. First is we need to define the outcome of the project. For example, what is it that we're trying to change? What is it, the behavior that we're trying to influence? Can we measure this behavior in a reliable and efficient way? How much of a change would like to make, and over what time period? The second would be understand the context. We need to understand who is participating in the situation, what is the context, what are the people, and understand the context from their perspective, understand the incentive that drives everybody within that context. Number 3 would be build your intervention. Use this framework that we're going to show next as the heart of the intervention and to generate some behavioral insight. Test, learn, adapt. This is where behavior science actually becomes a science, because we are able to test and learn from the insights, then test again, tweak, and continue on. So this is test, learn, adapt. It's an iterative process that you have to do to ensure that you constantly nudge up the behavior change that you want to change. All right, so before we go into, so this is the first framework called the E.A.S.T framework. You can find it online. It was developed in 2010 by a team in UK, and it has 4 steps. If you want to encourage a behavior, make it easy, attractive, social, and timely. We're going to take each one of them. First of all, and the most important piece that is very strong throughout the behavior economic science, throughout the behavior science, is make it easy for the user. And we are talking about bridging the gap. Bridge the gap between intent and action. We all have been in situations where we had every intention of doing something, but we never got to actually do it, right? We never got around to doing it. And it could be small things. It could be things that we need to go, like clean the house, or sometimes could be bigger, important things, like starting a pension plan or choose a college, apply to college. So the lesson that is very strong that comes out of behavioral economics, very strong, is that small, seemingly irrelevant details count. They can make a difference in the intent of doing something and the action of actually doing it. And this gap between the intent and action could be very important. Is very important, not only for the fact that we will eventually keep postponing until we go up against the deadline, or sometimes if it's visiting a website or buying something from a website, we will never get around of doing it. So this small details matter. So the first principle is make it easy, and it has 3 pieces of it, if you will, or 3 strong pieces. The first way of making it easy is harness the power of defaults. We have a strong tendency to go with the default of the preset option, since it is easy to do so. Making an option the default option makes it more likely to be adopted. What does it mean? Default is the outcome that occurs if we do not choose otherwise. Okay, so is the path of least resistance, is the path where we use the least amount of mental energy. The system one loves the default because there's nothing to think about. It could just go on and do it and getting it done. And defaults are very powerful, and we saw some example of them in the course. It has to do with the 401k automatic enrollment, the organ donation scheme that we see, where all these defaults were very powerful and had some strong outcome. Other defaults that you've seen throughout the course are gym membership, where you keep paying for the membership on a monthly basis, even if you're not going anymore, because you have automatic transfer from your checking or credit card. Mobile phones are set up with the ringtone as a default, and you don't get around to change it, and so on. So the default option will be one of the strongest nudges, if you will, that you have. The second one would be, if we cannot use the default option so much, then an alternative would be to reduce the cost of taking up a service, or reduce the friction to take up a service. You have to remember that any obstacle that you put knowingly or unknowingly in my process of taking the action will have an influence and will reduce my desire to continue on. So the hassle, the effort required to perform an action often puts people off. So what I can do is I can reduce that obstacle and therefore increase the response rate. One more thing that reduce the hassle factor, that if I were to get people to fill up forms, this is a thing that happens all the time, then maybe I can reduce the hassle of filling up the form by preloading the form with some important information so people can just send it in. The third piece of making it easy is to simplify messages. So the making messages clear often results in a significant response in communication, and we can identify how a complex goal can be broken down into simpler, easier actions. Remember that any additional words that I have to read and think about them, and if they're confusing enough, they will all cost me mental energy units, which I'm reluctant to spend. So, so simplifying messages, getting to the point quicker, getting to the point with ways or mediums where I know people will read, like text messages, emails, and so on, will make a difference. An example of make it easy: in the first 6 months after employees in large firms were automatically enrolled into pension schemes, participation rates rose from 61 to 83%. The second part of this framework is making attractive. Now, products that attract attention, first of all, just because they attract attention, they get more salient, and we are perceiving attractive products that they work better. Because of the halo effect, we're perceiving attractive products that they also work better. We are more likely to do something that our attention is drawn towards, right? So ways of doing this include use of images, colors, or personalization. Something salient needs to get my attention when I look at something, or I'm trying to use a product or see a website. There should be a nudge that drives me towards a part of this that attracts my attention. So, two ways of doing this is attract attention. For example, if you put a handwritten post-it note on envelopes, it is shown to be increasing the response rate. or the image of the recipient's car in letters to people who have not paid their vehicle tax to increase payment rates will also make it familiar. Design rewards and sanctions for maximum effect. This includes the use of lotteries. If your product or service or website or whatever you could use the use of lotteries, because lotteries are very competitive, people like them, and we have a tendency to focus more on the size of the prize rather than the chances of winning it. So hence the popularity of lotteries as well. Another way of designing rewards and sanctions for maximum effect is focus on scarcity and of the product and service. So if we say maximum 5 per customer or limit 2, or if we see that time is going down on an offer, then we are much more likely to react to it. Drawing attention to self-image. We have a powerful desire to maintain a positive self-image. So one way to do it is by asking people if they belong to a group. So how important it is for you to be a voter in the upcoming election, as opposed to how important it is for you to vote in the upcoming election. By asking nouns versus verbs, we asking people to be placed in a category as voters, which belongs to a group, and we like that social aspect of it. Gamifying activities. If we can use games or some kind of activities that we can gamify in our products, that will actually work also well. Make it social. This is about social proof. Social proof is when we see someone doing, when we see people doing a certain behavior, we assume that in that situation that is the correct behavior. If that's why it works when we're talking about reviews, customers' testimonials. If I see other people doing that behavior, I'm much more influenced by that. Amazon works really well because of this. So if I go to buy a product that I don't know much about on Amazon website, obviously I'm searching for a product with a lot of reviews, a lot of positive reviews, and then I can reduce the risk of getting something bad because many other people have enjoyed this product before. So we have to behave according to some social norms, and therefore in certain situations when we see people doing an action, we believe that is the correct action. Now that could lead to other things like mob actions. When let's say we see people throwing rocks at a building, we assume that in that context that would be the correct behavior. Obviously, something that we would not do on our own in isolation. So it's important that we use it for obviously positive things and not negative things, but it does work both ways. Using the power of networks, that means that we're trying to use the networks that we built over time to spread out our message. So, for example, using our networks that we have, we are all connected to different networks. In today's age, we have all the networks that we can think of, Facebook and LinkedIn and so on, and we can use those networks to encourage or discourage or allow a behavior to spread. Encourage people to make a commitment to others. So if I were to lose weight, for example, and I can go in public with a public statement where I post to my networks that I will make a public commitment that I'm going to lose 20 pounds by next year, right? That way, what's happening is I have to behave consistent with my my action have to be consistent with my commitment. So therefore, and I don't want to lose. What am I losing? I'm losing reputation. I'm losing my face, if you will, on the network, and that's something that I want to avoid. Not only the losses that we don't like, but also loss of reputation or loss of other things. So encouraging people to make a commitment to others, it works. Again, these are all situational. It depends on the situation. When people were told in letters that most people pay their taxes on time, it increased significantly the payment rate. The most successful message led to a 5% increase in payments. So these are like a small nudge, which leads to a 5% increase in tax payment, which is huge. So nudges work. Make it timely. We're talking about making timely when we actually prompt people to respond when they're likely to be most receptive. For example, as a blanket statement that I've seen before, emails that were sent on Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock were twice as likely to be open than the one that were sent Monday at 10 o'clock, because obviously people are more receptive on Tuesday at 10 o'clock than Monday at 10 o'clock. Can prompt people to via text, so a combination of email and text. And this is what the medical offices do well these days. They send you a 7-day notice in email, a 2-day notice in email, and then they follow up with a text message the day of or the day before. And this is increasing their appointment rates significantly. Another way is to consider immediate costs and benefits. Obviously, and we saw this a few times in this course, cost and benefits are influencing our decision. Do I have to pay anything now? Do I have to do anything now for some benefit that I don't really see in the future? If I see the benefits clear in the future, then I can adjust my cost. I can compare my cost with the benefits and decide if it's a bargain or not. Should I go through with it? It happens a lot on website, on other online interfaces. If the website is not clear on the benefits that it gives me, I will have to skip it, because the cost of me digging around and searching around and look for benefits is way too high for some unknown benefits that are not clearly displayed. So people are having a hard time if they have to pay something now in terms of cost, clicks, energy, mental energy, versus getting the benefits now. So I'd rather get some benefits now and pay later. That's why credit card works so well, because I get the benefits now. I buy the shoe that I like today, but I don't have to pay until the end of the month. Choice architects should consider whether this immediate cost or benefits can be adjusted, given that. Or the next one is help people plan their response to events. So if we help people understand their gap between intention and actual behavior, then maybe we can help them develop a specific plan to address them. Those will help and make it more timely too. Example, 10 days before a fine is due, simply texting people who owe fines doubles the number of payments received without further intervention. So this was the E.A.S.T framework, very popular, very strong framework that you find in literature, is being shown to get significant results in terms of dollars with very simple nudges. And this showed that the power of nudges is quite significant. Again, you have to stack them up. You got to put multiple nudges on top of each other. One nudge by itself, it will not be that strong. All right, so let's move on to the next framework that we're using, and that is the nudge framework. We will need to do some pre-work here, and to talk about the target audience first. many businesses have this target audience in their marketing plan, and they talk about the target audience. We have to, they miss the behavioral part of a target audience, where something that we call behavioral persona, where we, in addition to the demographics and other things that we have for a target audience, we have to add target audience risk preferences, beliefs, incentives, at least the four questions we talked, education, and this will give us an idea of who is the behavior um, persona that we're dealing with. So the target audience, as we talked in the previous lecture, consists of one and the same group. If you have multiple persons, people, personas as a target audience, you might want to reconsider and change the design accordingly, which takes a little bit of a more detailed approach. So the nudge framework has 5 steps. The first step, number 1, is the nudge. Something on the design has to trigger users' attention. Something has to be salient. Use of imagery, color, space on the interface. This is the nudge. Something will have to draw the user attention in a nice picture, a very big and colorful picture. Something will have to get it. If this is the most important, this is a system one thing. If something doesn't attract our attention, it's very easy for us to overlook, as we saw. So what problems do we encounter when we are trying to build something like this? Distractions. If the interface of the product is noisy, complex, then it also adds a lot of distraction, which will stop me from seeing the nudge. Or sometimes we have not strong enough nudge and user doesn't notice. So we would need a nudge, but these are the two, if you want, inhibiting pressures that on the nudge, which is distraction and not a strong enough nudge. The second step is user reaction. And again, this is a system one characteristic. If we see something, we react to it. Either we like something or we don't. So if we look at a product, an online interface or a product or a website, within fraction of a second, we get a reaction to it. We like it or we don't. Hopefully this is a positive reaction that would allow us to move to the next step. But again, there are problems with this. There could be distractions, too many ways when the user can distract it. And you'll see this distraction part all over this framework, because you can distract the user at any moment. And typically the user doesn't have that much attention span, and any distraction will probably send them away. Or you can have a negative reaction. So if the reaction is not positive, it most likely is going to be, well, negative, because even if it's indifferent, it's still a negative reaction. Steps 1 and 2, the nudge and the user reaction, are system 1 domain. You cannot unsee something that you saw, and you will have a reaction no matter what. But you want this reaction to be positive. So if we went through step 1 and step 2, which are system 1, now since we like it, we have arrived to this moment when we like it, then we are considering giving more time, more time on the online interface we're talking about. So this time in step 3, we were going to engage system 2 in determining if costs versus benefits. If the costs are more than benefits, then we are not willing to go further. If the costs are less than the benefits, obviously we would like to go further. Remember, losses outweigh the gains by a factor of 2. What are costs, especially when we talk about online interfaces? Any extra work that I have to do, extra clicks, additional page turners, scrolling, confusion, anything that would make me think, where are the benefits? If I don't see the benefits and I don't see why I'm struggling for, I don't see a progress toward the benefits, then I'm going to have to reconsider and get out. So here we have, because it's a system 2, we have 3 problems that we have to deal with. Again, distractions on the website, on the product, on the online interface. 2, costs outweigh the benefits. If I don't see the benefit, then any cost will add up to my expense account, if you will. And at some point in time, I have too high of a cost, I got to get out. So if the benefits are not clearly displayed, I don't see why I'm progressing towards. Step 4, if you made it so far, if the costs are less than the benefits, obviously you're more convinced that you're in the right place, the place being an online interface, and now you wanted to act, you want to do something, you want to purchase, you want to buy the product, right? So you're looking for how to do it and can you do it? So I want to buy something on a website. How do I do it? Can I see? Do I see exactly what I have to do? Add to cart, or purchase now, buy now, move to checkout, and so on. I have to be able to see this through in a very clear fashion. So the path to the action has to be clearly displayed. Again, distractions are every time at every step. And the second problem is that the user wants to act, he wants to purchase, he wants to buy, he wants to play with the product, but doesn't see where and how, and therefore will leave. Step 5, assuming that yes, we're able to take action on this interface, you have to make the user feel the emergency of doing it now. Not only that the user should be able to carry out the action on the interface and the path to action should be clearly displayed, but the interface should nudge the user to take the action now and not later. What happens if I don't want to do it now? I'll have to come back later, and then I have to run again through the same 5 steps that we're doing right now. So what behavior effects should be used here? If you remember, the hint is FOMO, fear of missing out, loss aversion, right? Scarcity. If there's no urgency, then I don't have any incentives of doing it now, and I'm going to get out. Or again, if we have too many distractions. So these are the 5 steps of the nudge framework that will make sure that people will actually bridge the gap between intent and action. How do we improve any design? For step 1, for the nudge, try these. Tell the user what the action is. Make it clear where to act and remove all distractions. For step 2, make the interface professional and attractive. Remember, attractiveness counts, saliency. Show that others are doing the same action, social proof. Show authority on the topic, right? For step 3, decide cost versus benefits. Use anchoring to prime the user and increase motivation. Use loss aversion. Use peer comparison. Remember those tables with check and X's when we compare 2 or 3 competitors and we list out the ones that we do well with checks, with swooshes, and what the competitor doesn't do as well with X's. That are very powerful tables. And avoid choice overload. Don't give too many choices to the customer. Give them choices, but not too many, because too many choices induces procrastination. For step 4, generate ability to act. Make it easy for the user to act. Remove all distractions and clear the decisional path. Make use of defaults. Do not make me think. I don't want to think, because thinking takes energy and I don't want to do that. So if I were to make it easy for the user, I need to clear and use defaults, so it's very simple and very system 1, very intuitive to finish the action. And for the last step is I want to create emergency. I wanted to make some kind of time-sensitive material. It ends today. The discount ends today. Only limit 2 per customers. If you buy until midnight, put a clock on the interface if it calls for it, if the situation allows for it. Use scarcity as a lever. and reinforce pre-commitment to act. So if you know people want to be consistent in their actions with what they said before, and so pre-commitment sometimes work. Again, this is a situational thing. You have to see what works for your products, for your environment that you're designing. And now I would like to introduce the final project, and we're gonna do a project together, which is we're gonna apply all the behavioral principles that we went through, and especially these two frameworks. So first, step one, you got to pick an interface. So I suggest a landing page for a website because there's so many and easy to find. So pick any landing page for a website, any company you want. Obviously, the smaller businesses are much easier to work with rather than big businesses, but it doesn't matter because I've seen big businesses that don't have a great um, website from behavior point of view. Step two, run each framework, E.A.S.T and N.U.D.G.E through the interface. Grade 0 for missing steps, 1 for existing steps, some in some fashion, and 2 for full presence of steps. And I mean steps, when I talk about steps, I mean for easy, at the E.A.S.T framework, the easy, it has defaults, remove obstacles, and clear messages. These are steps. So not only easy, but also the steps under it. Step 3, compute final grade for the interface design, come up with a score, and then issue suggestions for design improvement for each step. So you go back to each step now and see how can you actually improve it. The deadline for it is going to be 1 week after the last class, and that will be our final project. In conclusion of this lecture, which was a practical application of behavioral science principles that we went through this course, these two frameworks are enough for you to cover the most of the behavioral principles out there. They give you enough, very strong foundation on how to apply behavior principles, and once you go through them a few times, you will notice that it will become a system 1 issue for you. System 2 will train system 1 to look for behavior change, ways of change behavior everywhere you go, given that you're using this on a continuous basis. Thank you again, and I'll see you next week for the last session.